Behind me is the all-new V8 supercar from Ferrari dubbed the F8 Tributo. It's the successor to the 488. It even sports the engine from the Pista and some of the aerodynamic elements from that car, such as this gorgeous S-duct. It's packed with technology, it's extremely fast, it's gorgeous to look at, but what is it actually like to drive? Well, today, we're gonna find out exactly that. When this car's predecessor, the 488, was initially released, it almost seemed like a step back in terms of design from the beautiful 458. The front was a bit cluttered and it didn't seem to flow together quite as well. But I do have to say, in person, the F8 Tributo is absolutely stunning. It's curvaceous, it's aerodynamically efficient, it's elegant yet aggressive, all at the same time. And honestly, I think that Ferrari nailed it with this new design language. Before we delve into the F8 Tributo, I want to say that we've got new vehicle versions merchandise located on the store below. Right below the video, you can actually click a handful of links for the new merch, from t-shirts to sweatshirts and more. Make sure to check it out, guys, and support the channel. The name Tributo is actually an homage to the most powerful Ferrari V8 ever created, and man, does it pack a punch. Take a look at the beautiful engine, a 3.9 liter twin turbocharged V8 that makes 710 horsepower. That's right, 710 and 568 pound-feet of torque. The car is capable from sprinting to 0 to 60 in just 2.9 seconds, although many tests have determined it's even quicker than that. The quarter mile happens in a breathtaking 10.2 seconds, making this the first car that's actually able to compete with the McLaren 720S in terms of straight line speed. All of that power is mated to a 7-speed double clutch gearbox. It's of course rear wheel drive, as all of these Ferraris are. And the top speed, get this, 211 miles an hour. Thanks to some impressive updates in the engine, Ferrari has shaved 40 pounds off the engine itself compared to the 488. We've got this intake manifold made from advanced materials such as Inconel. We've got lightweight titanium connecting rods and a lighter flywheel as well. All in all, the total curb weight of the F8 is an extremely low 3,150 pounds. Now, traditionally, you can always see the engine beneath a glass engine bonnet cover in Ferraris, but they've done something really unique with the F8 Tributo. Instead of using glass, they've used an incredibly lightweight material called Lexan. It's got 3 vents in it for heat extraction from the engine bay, and it's meant to hark back to one of the coolest design features of the Ferrari F8. I absolutely love the way this looks. All right, let's talk aerodynamics, because the aerodynamic features of the F8 are truly impressive. First off is the S-duct in the front, a duct that allows airflow to go through the front bumper and up and over the hood. This is actually technology pioneered in Formula 1 and was brought to cars first in the Ferrari Pista. As you can see, not only does the F8 look more aggressive than the 488, but this S-duct combined with the rest of the redesigned front fascia results in a 15% increase in downforce over the front axle as compared to the 488. You can literally see all the way down through here to the ground on the other side. The frontal radiator and cooling system was also lifted from the 488 Challenge car, so we've got bits from a race car, we've got bits from the high-performance Pista, all into an easier-to-drive, more comfortable road car. You'll note the headlights themselves are a little bit smaller than that of the 488 and the 458. I actually really like this design. It's almost reminiscent of the LaFerrari. We've got a smaller turning indicator here, and it actually allows for a vent above the headlight for additional brake cooling. We've also got a slew of aerodynamic benefits over the 488 in the rear of the car as well, in the form of a new spoiler. This floating rear spoiler floats above the rear taillights and above the engine cover and comes together in an absolutely gorgeous fashion that actually produces 25% more downforce than the 488. And thanks to the floating nature, it actually has these 3 turning vanes, 1, 2, 3 right there, that actually recompress the car's airflow towards the wake of the car to reduce drag over its predecessor as well. One of the biggest design elements that you'll see that's a difference from the 488, and a good way to tell, is that it actually has 4 taillights, harking back to cars like the 308 GTB, as opposed to the previous design language where there was only one on the left and one on the right. Note how big that rear diffuser is, and it actually has individual flaps down here that drop down and deploy in order to stall that rear diffuser and increase aerodynamic efficiency while reducing drag. All right, let's hop on the inside. The interior of the F8 Tributo is as gorgeous as the car's exterior. I love the design language in the seats with those contrasted stitching, the beautiful little dots throughout the seat. These are actually incredibly comfortable as well. And the mix of Alcantara down there by the glove box with the leather and carbon fiber, it all flows together extraordinarily well. Now, it's only minor tweaks compared to the 488. The interior architecture looks very similar, but there are some key differences between the two cars. For one, the vents in the 488 used to be these units that were kind of triangular that fit up against the front of the speedo and tachometer. Now we've got units that look much more similar to that in the 812 Superfast. These round air vents surrounded by beautiful amount of carbon fiber. Also, the controls have been replaced with simpler controls down here with a little display to let you know what's going on for the climate control. And one of the coolest parts in the F8 is actually an optional screen like the 812 Superfast, a 7-inch touchscreen display where you can actually see the speedo, the tach, media data, and navigation info from the passenger seat. Little view out the rear window there where you can see that beautiful Lexar covering over that engine. There's various little spots to put your phone, both here, and also a cool little key holder for the F8 key right in front of the frontal cup holder. I also like this design element here, that you have the release button for the glove compartment in red. Looks really cool. Another significant change of the interior of the F8 is the size of the steering wheel. They've actually made the steering wheel smaller, and I think it was a fantastic decision. Apparently, this was to make driving more precise, but also to allow extra room between, if you're a taller driver, your thighs and the steering wheel itself, so that you're not sitting with the steering wheel in your lap. The actual grip size and thickness of the wheel is amazing, and it feels absolutely fantastic in your hands. To fire the car up, put your foot on the brake, click the engine start button, and fire up that twin turbocharged V8. Note, like all modern day Ferraris, we've got the turning indicators on the steering wheel themselves to allow for extra room for these gorgeous large paddles behind the car. The activation of the paddles is fantastic, as with all Ferraris. Down here, we've got the Manatino dial to select between wet, sport, race, CT off, and ESC all the way off. More on that later. There's a really cool feature of the F8 regarding that. But overall, visibility is great out of the front. I think it's time to take this car for a spin and see what it's like to drive. Behind the wheel of the F8 Tributo now, and I gotta say, it's an incredibly easy car to drive. I mean, for something that has 710 horsepower, you'd think it would be intimidating around town and it would take a ton of focus, but the suspension is nice and supple. The steering doesn't feel like it takes too much effort. Everything flows together very, very well. However, when you mash the gas, it is one of the fastest cars that I have driven in a long time. I really do think that this is one of the few cars that could give a 720S a run for its money. Floor the gas. Oh my God. It's actually intimidating how fast it is. Once the turbos spool up, and there's not a hint of turbo lag whatsoever now that I think about it. You know, cars like McLaren, they've got this very pronounced lag to them, and it creates kind of a fun sensation as they kick on, but they no longer feel like naturally aspirated cars. They feel like an almost dated turbocharged platform, but the turbos spool up so linearly in the F8 Tributo, you almost forget the car has turbos at all. I mean, this thing sends you back into your seat really, really quickly. There we go. Oh my God. Now, I will say, the one thing you lose, despite the fact that this car is incredibly, incredibly fast, and I mean really fast, you lose the sound. With the turbochargers, the engine just doesn't feel as alive in terms of its sound quality as it did before. Now, they did some restructuring of the exhaust as well as internals in the engine to make higher pitched notes appear in more quantities, but I'm not actually hearing that. It feels a little bit muted when you're driving the car. Now, I'm sure an aftermarket exhaust can help that a little bit, but those are some of the things that you lose in a turbocharged car compared to a naturally aspirated one. Steering feel is fantastic in the car, and I think the suspension setup is right where it needs to be for a road car. Straight away. Oh my God. I'm actually like really impressed with how fast this car is. I'm sure I've said that now 5 times in a row and you're bored with that, but seriously, wow. I'm actually at a loss for words with the acceleration. That is unbelievable. I mean, it's not even in the same ballpark as a Huracan Evo. This would leave it for dead, no doubt about that. Now, some updates to the car's traction control. Ferrari has an incredibly advanced traction control system, torque vectoring, this and that. But what's really cool about the new F8 Tributo is the side slip control. Now, that's nothing new for Ferrari. We've had it for a couple generations now, but what's cool is instead of having to turn CT off or ESC off, putting it into a super crazy, very scary to drive mode because you've got limited traction in a 700 horsepower car, it now activates side slip control when you're in race mode. So what does that mean? Well, if you stab the throttle a bit too much, start to create oversteer, and you actually want to drift the car, or if it's an accident, you want to mitigate the drift, Ferrari now has side slip control in race mode. So you can drive the car like a champion at its limit without worrying that you're going to crash the vehicle. And I think that's really cool. As cars are getting more and more advanced and faster, humans aren't necessarily keeping up with that. And if you get the average Joe buying a F8 Tributo that accelerates like out of this world quick, you need these safety systems to make sure the driver is both safe and having a lot of fun all at the same time. And this car does that very well. What I'm impressed with is the car's traction control and ability to not limit the car's acceleration, but at the same time allow you to move forward at an extremely rapid pace, even if the tires aren't all the way heated up, and even if it isn't in the perfect condition. This is such a usable car out on the road on a daily basis. I truly think you could daily drive this car with no problem at all. I mean, sure, you've got a little less luggage space than your traditional car, but at the end of the day, you would be driving a Ferrari. The car has really short gears as well. Instantly, you're thrown into the top of second gear, shifting into third. Wow. The gearbox, razor sharp. The shifts are so quick, it's almost imperceptible when they happen. Now, one thing I've read is that people are complaining about the visibility in the F8. And I honestly have to completely disagree with that. I think frontal visibility is phenomenal in the car. It's got very thin A-pillars, so you can see all around you in the front. Now, the only thing is, that rear Lexar windscreen causes a little bit of blur in your rear view mirror. Because of those vents, it kind of distorts the objects behind you, but you can still see them really, really well. Over the shoulder, there's a bit of blockage here, but compared to its Lamborghini counterpart, the visibility is definitely better in the F8. Got a little bit of blow-off valve action there, but man, this car is quick. Obviously, driving it around town, we're not in back roads or canyons or anything like that, but it gives me a better sense of what this car is actually like to drive in a real world scenario. You're not always on the best roads in the world when you're driving a car like this, but I do have to say it has this X factor about it that's kind of unexplainable, that feels amazing. I mean, this car puts a smile on my face, it handles very well, it's super fast, and the build quality just feels really high end. I don't know what it is, but the mix of the design, the material choice, and the powertrain, and this transmission just come together in such a fluid and amazing way. I think Ferrari has done an unbelievably good job with the new F8. I gotta say, I'm impressed with Ferrari's seats. As aggressive, sporty, and racy as these seats look, they provide a perfect amount of support around turns. They really hold you in place, but they're comfortable at the same time. They've got great lumbar support. You could do long distance trips in this car, no problem at all. The car feels to me like a pista for the road. It's honestly every bit as quick as a 488 pista is, but there's a lot less drama. Now, it depends on what your style of driving is. If you want something that shakes you up every second behind the wheel, that's aggressive, that you can really feel the road beneath you, this isn't so much the car. And the 720S isn't like that either. This is more of a pista that's got a softer suspension with a little bit more sound deadening that makes it more comfortable and usable on a daily basis, but with every bit of that speed and beauty on the outside. I think this is such a good looking car, and the same I couldn't say about the 488. As we travel into the next generation of hybrid cars, it's interesting to see, is this going to be the last car with just an internal combustion engine and no hybrid? Of course, we have the SF90 coming up, which I can't even imagine how fast that car is with the addition of a hybrid powertrain, considering what the F8 feels like. Ferrari is on an awesome trajectory right now, and I'm excited for the future of the brand. All right, one last pull for old time's sake. Wow. Wow. I'm impressed, Ferrari. I mean, to think that this is their entry-level mid-engine supercar is pretty wild. I mean, this feels faster than a heck of a lot of modified cars that I've driven. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. 2 thumbs up for the F8 Tributo. The only thing it's missing to me is a better sounding exhaust. Whether or not that's possible with an aftermarket system, well, you know, with the turbocharged car, it's not gonna sound as good as a 458 Speciale, but a 458 would be left for dead in a straight line against this car. And honestly, the handling, the steering, the suspension is done in such an amazing fashion in this car. All right, guys, see you next one.